Hey everybody, I think we are live. So I hope you are all doing great. So this is Joshua from the Devrel team at Aviyel. So this session is more about what Avi is doing with Scarf. This is the second time Avi is on the stage. Good to have you, Avi. So let me give a quick introduction about yourself and what's going to be in this session. So, so Avi is the CEO of Scarf, and which is basically a tool to measure the community health. So basically, it helps to solve the problem of sustainability of open source as a whole through user metrics and some analytics which can help the project, the creators of the project, and the community managers and several teams to grow uh, by exactly finding what actually the community, the project community needs. So that's the whole idea, and we are going to have a quick demo of the platform, of the Scarf dashboard, and we'll see a lot of things what can be really done. So over to you, Avi.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for having me. Yeah, so I guess just to very briefly introduce a little bit deeper here. Scarf is a platform that can help you get a better understanding of how your software is being used in the wild, and how you can have a bit more ownership over the channels that you're distributing your software on. Um, and so I can share my screen here and we can kind of just jump into a little bit of like how that actually works in practice here. Is this being shared properly here? Can we see my
Yeah,
screen? Yes. Okay, great,
yeah,
great,
it's
great.
clear. Yeah,
Cool. So from the dashboard here, we essentially have on scarf.sh, our website, a web app for you to basically manage and come in and see, kind of at a very high level how things are going. And so there's a lot of just kind of dummy data in here, but if you were getting started for the first time, one of the things that you might want to do is perhaps set up an organization by which you can kind of manage all of your software underneath. I'm going to kind of just skip this for now, but just to give kind of the notion that your software might be within an organization, or it might just be something that you are managing yourself. Um, our tools fit into a few different categories. And the first one that I'm going to start with is called Scarf Gateway. And so let's say, for instance, that you have on Docker Hub. I'm just going to find one of my packages on Docker Hub that I'll use just as a quick demo test here. And I'll just also make sure that I just kind of delete it from the system really quick so we don't clash with any. So
cool,
what I have
nice.
here is a Docker container. This is one of my a side project from a while ago. I guess like 3 years before I was really touching this too much. But the idea when I was using this, and this is the particular story of kind of how Scarf even came to be, is that I had some people that were at big companies that were using the software, but I didn't really know exactly how. And I had different distributions, not just Docker, but like system packages as well. But basically the idea here is if I want to know how the container is being used, I'm basically I'm going to create a Docker package type on Scarf. And the idea is that Scarf is going to sit in front of Docker Hub with respect to my user. So I'm going to tell Scarf, okay, where is my container's current pull command? And so I'm basically just going to tell Scarf, yep, here's the current identifier of my project. And it's going to basically, Scarf is basically spitting out a new URL that I can use to give people to pull down my Docker container. Normally it would just be Docker pull avi / toodles. Now it's going to be Docker pull avi.docker.scarf. And if you like, you can even specify a custom domain. So I'm going to just say docker.avi.press as a kind of domain that I have set up myself here. And then I'm going to hit submit. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm basically taken to a page which is now like this is like this is the new landing and analytics page for my new Docker package. And the idea is now I have this new URL which I can copy here, which just out of the box is going to work for my users. And so in my projects, the idea here is now in my projects like README or whatever, this is the new command that I should instruct my users to use. Scarf will give me a little bit of information about how I should set up, since I decided to use a custom domain here rather than the Scarf URL. But the really cool thing about this is now down the road, if say I want to move my container from being hosted on Docker Hub to being hosted somewhere else, let's say I wanted to push this to Google's container registry, GCR. I might put something like this in here. I would hit save. I'm not going to do that here. And suddenly, like, Scarf would be moving my traffic over without actually breaking things for my users, because they're not pulling from this other static domain. The nice thing now is that every time someone pulls down this container, I'm just showing the example insights here, I'd be able to see every single pull of my container by all of these different statistics. So I would be able to see what tags are being pulled down of my installations, how many over time are unique, like how many come from the same place. And this is something that we actually will see a lot of in the wild. You'll see, like, you might get, say, 1,000 downloads of your software in a given day. That might have only come from like 5 different people. And we see this kind of thing a lot, where you'll have like CI systems that will be pulling things down like all day. They'll inflate your stats more than you might realize. We can also break down the pulls by what platform they're taking place on, and so you can kind of get a better understanding of what the breakdown of machines and different use cases are for your users. We can also understand, which companies are pulling these things down and what cloud providers they might be using. Again, this is all demo data, so this is not real here. But another interesting thing when it comes to containers is you might want to know, which actual container runtimes are being used here. Was it Docker, container, dcryo, etc.? Pulls from container D are likely within Kubernetes. Docker, much less likely to be Kubernetes now that Kubernetes has retired Docker as the main container runtime. And you can also get a good sense of where in the world your users are. But that's not kind of the only tool that you can be using here. And so we have another notion, another tool called documentation insights. And this is where you can basically create tracking pixels. And so I'll maybe say Toodles README Aviyel demo. And so the idea here is that we can make tracking pixels that you can attach to each package that you make on Scarf. And the idea here is that if you basically just embed a tracking, or an image tag snippet here. So if I go to README Toodles, the idea would be that I would go, into my README here. I would go and paste this image URL, and I'll try to make this bigger again. So this is the image tag that I just copied from Scarf. And so essentially, whenever my README is going to get loaded, it's going to render this 1-by-1 clear pixel from Scarf. And so you can see that that's at static.scarf.sh. We have just a very generic a.png tracking pixel, and we include this parameter, which essentially references the ID of my pixel. And so this is really powerful because it's basically showing what can happen now is, I'm actually not going to commit this right here, but the idea being that, if someone loads my README on Docker Hub, and then they go pull down the actual Docker container, Scarf can now correlate those events and basically say, like, yeah, someone in the United States loaded the README, and then that exact same address went and pulled down this Docker container. Especially if I, embed the new install instructions that I had from Scarf in here, this gives us a really concrete way to basically track the journey of a given user with your software, from how they discover it to then how they download it to how they use it and then go eventually deploy it to production. You can kind of start to track that all the way across. I know I'm jumping around here a lot, but one of the really cool ways you can actually consume this information here is via our API. And so I'm jumping over to the Scarf documentation and just showing that, I can essentially export this data. I can fetch raw, download by download numbers here, which is really, really powerful. And I can basically get a, very, very detailed description of how my containers are, or, how this container gets used. And, including pretty much everything: the company name, the cloud provider name, cloud provider domain, where it happened, what version they pulled. All this stuff is now programmatically at my fingertips by having set this package up. And so it's telling me here that, this download link is almost ready. Scarf is getting it set up. And the cool thing is that now, this new URL is available everywhere in the world. It will be very fast. We have Scarf Gateway has servers that are set up kind of globally on AWS, so it should be fast for everybody, but it takes time to propagate that change. For documentation analytics from your Pixel, the data that you see is a little bit more limited than if you are, presenting the entirety of your, the software downloads on the platform. But we can basically see like how many views your docs had, what country they were viewed in, what company was associated with that view, and then the exact page that the view appeared on. And the thing here that's important to call out is that, if I embed this pixel in my README, that README may be getting rendered on GitHub, but it also might be rendered on Docker Hub. It also might be rendered on other sites that may be pulling by open source. It may even get rendered in someone's browser if they clone this and are looking at it in their editor. And that's really useful information, because it can tell you a whole lot about how people are finding you, how they're getting to you, what they're reading, where they're getting stuck. And it's a really good way if you're very community-minded. People who are just getting started with the open source project and just trying it out are the exact group of people that you want to convert into, contributors, customers, that kind of thing. And so the combination of documentation insights as well as package analytics on Scarf Gateway are a really good way to get started with that and track that in a really low friction way. We just got this set up in 10 minutes. I'm done. That's all I need to do, as well as, perhaps update, my README so that, in Docker, it'll, to update these instructions to actually point to your new Scarf installation. And indeed, I actually already have that right here, where we see docker.avi.press, which is my own custom domain. If you are using one very brief note to make, if you are using a custom domain, you do have to set up that CNAME. And so just to kind of show you what the value of this ends up being, if I look at what docker.avi.press actually routes to, I've set up a CNAME so it links to docker.avi.scarf or avi.docker.scarf.sh. And so real quickly, I know I'm jumping around a whole lot here. I just showed how that works for Docker, but it's really easy to track other kinds of things as well. And so we actually just launched Python support, for instance. So you are able to basically point, any package that might be on pip or something like that, we can easily track with Scarf as well. So if I wanted to say, make Django available through my Scarf installation, I can do that. And so let's say, I might want it to use maybe I'll just do Python test .avi.press might be my own custom domain I'd want to use, but I can just not include one at all, and we'll use a Scarf URL. And I can hit submit here. And now we can see that Scarf is actually, propagating this. We have a little bit more live status here. And now I can do all the same stuff that I just did with Docker, now with pip. There's one extra flag that you'll have to, that your users will have to provide to make sure that it goes to the right registry. This is, in this case, I've set up this URL. And here's the package name, Django. And so now anytime that someone runs this command here, basically it's going to hit Scarf servers, and then we just issue a very simple redirect over to the registry that you are using. And so just to give, a little bit of a a little bit of a visual explainer of this, the idea is that, between your users on the left here and all of your artifacts on the right, whether they are Docker containers, whether they're raw files, whether they're Python packages, etc., Scarf can sit in the middle and be that middle layer that will redirect however you tell us to and spit out lots of insights along the way. And so, yeah, I guess, it's been, maybe a minute, and now our package is ready to be served. This is now a working URL. And so I guess I'll rather than give demos from the command line with installs doing kind of exactly what you'd expect them to do, we'll just move on here. But there are other tools at your disposal to basically add your teammates. So I'll maybe just like invite my co-founder Tim. He's an admin of this package. Great. Now he can see all these statistics, and now he can make these changes as well. And that's so from a like a maintainer's admin panel, this is a great tool to be able to make sure that all your users can fetch all your packages from a single endpoint, make sure your team is all in the loop, and see how those stats are doing over time. And so, from the dashboard, you can kind of see, this is mostly just dummy account in my dummy data in my account, but you can kind of see at a high level, like, are your installs trending up or down? What packages are getting installed the most? Where are your pixels being loaded? From what companies? All that good stuff, and kind of even what pages. And so, I can see that my docs are getting loaded on socket.dev, on sneak.io, npm trends, yarn package, openbase, random, a lot of different places here. And these are just like a few, just a few pixels that are just out there right now. The last kind of package that I should show is even for files. So for one of my personal packages, so I, a few years ago, wrote an integration test framework for which a few companies have been using, and I will publish my releases to GitHub releases. And so for any given release, I'll basically embed the tarballs that the built executables, and it's really hard to see here, but in the bottom left corner you'll see that downloads.avi.press is the here. I'll actually just copy this copy the link address, and so this is the download URL for this artifact. And if I hit enter, I get the download here. This ended up hitting Scarf Gateway, and then Scarf Gateway simply redirects over to GitHub. And so if I go in here, curl runnings raw. The really, really interesting thing here is that I have full control over what URLs I'm using that the user will see, and I can even templatize them. So when it comes to, like, here's the full URL that will be shown on GitHub, I've actually fully automated away incrementing versions and mentioning which platform is being downloaded here, because this is the format for all those URLs. So now I just have to make this template once. And so we can see that what we've done is, so I guess really quickly, like I would create this package as a file package on Scarf Gateway with a package name. And basically we have the notion of incoming URLs and outgoing URLs. So incoming into Scarf and outgoing to your actual registry. And so here we have one incoming URL, which is for just curl runnings at a specific version and a specific platform, which then will map to this fully expanded URL. And then we also, for convenience, have this latest incoming URL, which essentially is going to hard code the version to whatever the latest version is. And then the platform is the one variable here. And now, anytime this URL gets used, we'll basically see the breakdown of those URLs within Scarf. And so, I can see basically how has version 16, 15 versus 17. 17 just got released, so there's only 2 downloads of it. Whereas 16 was the established one for a while. Most of my users are on Linux rather than Mac. And we can kind of see that breakdown here, as well as, this day we got 3 installs, but they all came from the same person. And that's really good to know. What company did they work at? They worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers or Verizon. That's really helpful information. The cloud providers, the clients, a lot of people are just downloading this via Chrome, but other people are using wget. Some Russian users, some people in France, the US. And so all of these tools basically fitting together, you can use to basically get a lot better of a picture of how your artifacts actually are getting used. And then ultimately, give you insight into how to drive your community. So like if I'm going to translate my README into a particular language, I should consider France. I should consider French as a target language there. And these are the kinds of questions that usage statistics can be really helpful to break down. For both maintenance, for identifying commercial opportunities, as well as for opportunities to grow my community. So all the stuff that I've shown within Scarf is totally free to use, and so all you really need to do is just come to scarf.sh and get an account created, which you can do with email or with GitHub. Highly encourage you to check it out and give it a try. All the stuff that I went through today are all available in our docs for getting started, quick guides, that sort of thing. And then the last thing that I didn't mention, which I think is a little bit of a slightly less used tool in our tool chain, we also have a similar kinds of analytics that you can get for JavaScript with our JavaScript SDK. So if you create a package name here, so I'll just do like a test Avi kind of thing. The idea is that you can add this scarf library as a dependency in your node library, and then anytime your npm package gets installed, it's going to fire off one hook, a post install hook, to basically send those stats up to Scarf, and then we can basically visualize that. And so let me just go to it really quick. npm scarf. This is basically the Scarf.js library, which is just another way to get at this data. We don't have Scarf gateway support for JavaScript because you can't really direct your users to an alternative registry if you're using npm, which 99.9% of us are at this point. But it is this is a way that you can get those stats by basically just kind of adding it to the build of your package. And so this is not, I would say, our suggested route when it comes to using Scarf is to use Scarf Gateway. But this is also getting no small amount of downloads either. And so I would definitely recommend checking it out if you're trying to get a better understanding of your npm package downloads. So from here, I'm just going to delete this dummy example here, but at a high level, that's kind of the basics of my demo. And so again, whether you want to be tracking the installation of your Docker containers, of your raw files or artifacts, binary, etc., Python packages or npm packages, or just literally anything else to track docs, we have tools that can basically give you insight that GitHub has not been showing you, or up until now. Like if you look at kind of the GitHub insights that you get, there's a lot less information in here. It's basically just like, how many people are cloning, how many total visitors, and what page did they look at, rather than like all the stuff that we can show, like where in the world are they, what company do they work for, all that stuff. And so, I hope this is useful. I hope you'll give it a try, and that's about all I have. So thank you very much for looking, for following along, and happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, that was great. Actually, it was I think installation gives a lot of sense to everyone who is trying to understand how Scarf really works. And And that dashboard and metrics would really help any maintainer or any community manager or anyone who is overseeing an open source project. So it can help connect with the corporate companies who are using your project, and build relations with them, have a long term commitment or anything, right? So it will help in any way possible. And that really, I mean, Scarf really cracked that. I mean, I don't think anyone ever did that thing in open source, and I really appreciate that. So we have one question. Does Scarf integrate with any visualization tools?
Yes, and fortunately, Justin just got the link here. Thank you, Justin, for linking to that.
Yeah.
I'll link the GitHub as well. Is that interesting? I'm clicking reply, but it's not going through in the chat tool here.
Okay, you can put it in the public chats if possible.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Did that? Am I asking new questions right now? Is that what's asking? Well, fortunately, Justin Dorfman was able to link to the blog post where we talk about it. There we go. Cool. Yeah. So basically, there are tools out there that consume Scarf's API and like dump your events into InfluxDB and then visualize it with Grafana. So you can basically build all of your own visualizations. If there are certain graphs that you would like to see in Scarf that we don't currently show, drop us a note in our Slack, or send us an email or open an issue on GitHub, and we're happy to add more visualizations as we go. So yeah.
Great. That's great. I think a lot of people would be adding and participating in that one.
Yeah.
So there's another question, but it's something not related to this session actually. But I've recently read a blog on the newstack.io, and I really appreciate that Scarf has taken a step forward by suspending all the open source packages and registries originating from Russian government. So could you tell more about it? Like, how did you actually start? Like, what made you take that decision? Or was it you by yourself, or like your company decided it to do?
Yeah, great. Thank you for the question. So I'll basically kind of just tell the story of what happened, but I was not long after I had my last talk on this platform. Yeah, the invasion of Ukraine was really surging, and it was. I was just thinking a lot about like what we could do to concretely, pitch in some way, and I think short of just like giving, just trying to find people to donate to or something over here on the other side of the world, there didn't feel like a whole lot. But what did come to mind was like, maybe we can find something interesting in Scarf Gateway's traffic data. And so I took a peek, and for any given pull that happens, or for any given download of your software on Scarf Gateway, we will tag that the origin of that traffic as either an ISP, like it's just someone at home, a company, like someone at work, a hosting, so like on EC2 or an Amazon instance, or government. And this is the kind of thing that you can export in your Scarf data. And so what I did was I basically did a query to find all of the IPs that were marked as government that were also within Russia. And we found a bunch of different downloads of various software packages from the Russian government that had basically been going on for the last like 8 or 9 months since we started being able to track government addresses. And that was pretty shocking to see. They had been downloading things to like, for internal orchestration of chat, for internal, container orchestration, lots of different things. And so, it was not a big leap to think that the software they were downloading from us may have been facilitating any kinds of operations that may have been involved with the invasion. And so the really interesting thing that we're able to do is block that traffic. Like, there's no reason that we need to be, directly facilitating their operations. And so Scarf has taken that step. We are blocking that traffic now. And I think this spurs a very important discussion for us open source maintainers. I think that, we talk about how open source should be free and available to everyone, kind of regardless. We shouldn't discriminate based on use cases. We shouldn't, take a stance on how the software is used. But that doesn't mean that we should completely ignore our distribution channels for how our software gets distributed. These are very different things. So
Yeah.
by taking a stand to say, look, we're going to close our distribution channels off from parties that are inciting global war right now, like that's a pretty, that's an easy choice for us to make as a company, that we do not want to be supporting those operations. And so I think this
Right.
is something that we at a higher level within open source need to really think about. Like, do we want our distribution channels to be, openly used by, really, really immoral parties, or really, active atrocities supporting parties? And I think the answer in our case is no. And I think the answer in a lot of cases will be no. But we can't really do we can't make these kinds of sweeping changes if we don't have the visibility into the data of these distribution channels. And so, ideally, I think all registries should be doing this as well. But most registries can't do this because they're not processing the information that would actually let them do that on the fly. And so my hope is that over time, more registries will fall in line with this and support this kind of endeavor. But until we have more observability at the distribution level, that's going to be really hard to do. And so hopefully more registries will take a page from this book, but only time will tell. Yeah, and I think ideally maintainers would be able to make this choice as well. If a maintainer wanted to go even further and say, like, I want to also block traffic from this other party or this other party, a future iteration of Scarf may be able to help them do that. But for now, we're kind of doing this at the entire Scarf gateway level to block this traffic. Yeah.
I think there's a follow-up question by Justin Doffman. Thanks for joining, Justin. Is it also a legal issue? Example, Salesforce and Slack had to shut down in Russia without data export because of sanctions.
Yeah, it definitely is. So there is a legal issue with respect to sanctions. Sanctions, as far as the ones I'm currently aware of, again, I'm not a lawyer, so take everything I say here with a little grain of salt. But to provide services in exchange for financial payment, I think, at least in the United States, those sanctions basically force those companies to shut down their operations in Russia. In the case of open source, like, money is not changing hands. Those kinds of sanctions do not apply in the same way. However, I think in the spirit of there's value to open source, you are providing value to whoever's on the other side. And if you're Scarf, those downloads cost bandwidth, and that bandwidth is expensive. And so we are paying money to serve them a package. No way we're going to keep doing that for the time being that they are actively invading another country, which we do not condone. And so, yeah, I think hopefully that fully answers that question, Justin. There are sanctions in play here, but as far as open source maintainers are concerned, these sanctions do not apply.
Great. I hope that answers, and really appreciate again for taking such a step to protect this and to be indulged in this kind of a situation, right? So, and yeah, if there are any questions, we have like few more minutes. We have like 5 minutes to go, and we'll be taking some more questions if there is anything from the audience. And apart from that, you can go and check out the Scarf website, and you can start playing with that. If you are a maintainer, you can try it out in your projects. So I have one question, like you were talking about the pixel tracking with the help of Scarf, right? So can that be used anywhere in your project, like documentation? When can we see where the users are more attracted into which parts they are of your documentation or the website or any other thing they're viewing most of the times?
Yeah, pretty much anything where someone can render an image, you can embed this pixel. So yeah,
Yeah,
your READMEs and your
got it.
docs, your website, you can even send emails with it in there. Like, it's a very flexible tool.
Yeah.
And anytime it's loaded, we'll be able to see what page it was loaded on. And so yeah, and this is one of those things where I can even say like there's other sites that offer pixel tracking tools as well. We're not the only ones, but this one is free and also like can be hooked up to all the other Scarf Gateway and SDKs and those kinds of things. So it gives these tools are stronger together kind of thing, and you just get a more clear and clear view of your users.
Yeah, it's ideally more flexible than any other third party. You can do everything at once. So there's another question: how big is the Scarf team at the moment?
So I think like with people who are like working for us internally, we're still less than 15 right now. I think with like various contractors and consultants and stuff, we're approaching 20. So we've been growing pretty quick, but the team has been one of the most rewarding parts of building this company has been building the team. So I'm very proud of that.
Right. So how does the community support Scarf? I mean, do you get any contributions from the open source community, or how it impacts your the main product?
So today we do offer a few components of our service that are open source, but Scarf Gateway actually we have not yet managed to open source, largely because we've been in the middle of like a very big rewrite of it, so it's like not super helpful to open that up yet. So in the time being, I would say our Scarf community has been most helpful for product feedback, and like feedback that helps us guide how we build the product basically. And so like we've been talking to a lot of commercial open source companies, and that was what made us prioritize Python as the package type that we just launched for a lot of those like machine learning cost companies. Our users definitely help us find lots of bugs that there are always more bugs. And it's kind of just been a place where we can learn more about what issues people are having with like commercializing their open source. And so I'd say the community has really been a thing for like guiding what we build and how we help them. Has not yet been a thing for contribution, but I think that'll be changing this year. So I'm excited for that.
Right. I hope that gets improving and more people try to understand the Scarf and contribute to it.
It should be helpful. It should be helpful.
So I guess that's it. We don't have any questions as of now, and so just to let you all know, we'll be posting this as a blog and a video on our socials. So make sure you follow Aviyel on socials. So we are trying to make open source more sustainable than what it is today. That's the whole big picture of Aviyel, but we are trying to bring in so many initiatives for contributors, maintainers, and in contributors again for non-code contributions and also the code contribution. We have a lot of things which are coming in, and if you have any questions or any feedback, you can email to us at hello@aviyel.com if you have any feedback on the product, or if you have any feedback on the idea of what we are trying to do. So thanks for the feedback. Like, it's all about community, right? So we believe community can only take us forward in whatever we are trying to do, even when it comes to Scarf or any other open source backing project, right? So it's all about community. Thanks everybody for tuning in and for the questions, and see you again